Hey, we are live. Welcome, guys, to our live reaction. Well, it's not really live at the moment, but yeah, we know whatever. Our live reaction of
At some
Google
point, we
Pixel.
really should watch this and do a live broadcast to MST3K it all at the same time.
Yeah, we should. We should do that. You know what? What's the next big one? Um, I guess next year.
Oh, I don't even know.
Yeah, most likely
I think
next
we'd have
year.
to wait until Galaxy S8. We should try and do that for Galaxy S8
Yeah,
if we're
but we
not
might be
there on the
at the end
ground.
of the round exactly. Yeah, but yeah, next year. Anyway, guys, welcome to our Google Pixel reaction to Google's big announcement. They had a very proper press conference announcement as a whole. Google announced a slew of products. They also did the typical let's talk about something else for a while before we get to hardware.
Yeah, yeah, they did. A
uh,
couple of
but
moments where you're sort of like, oh, okay, we could get on with it. I think we understand what you're talking about now. Let's
yeah,
talk about something else now.
definitely. Oh, before I even continue, I want to introduce Mr. Juan Bagnell from Pocket Now. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Yes, so let's get down to the meat of the matter here. What did you think about the Pixel? So while you're discussing, I will show you guys images of the Pixel, and Juan can give his thoughts, and I'll give mine.
I am a little underwhelmed on the Pixel. I'm actually writing up an editorial right now about the Pixel camera and DxO mark scores and all that fun stuff. That should be up on pocketnow.com as soon as we're off of this hangout. I'm not entirely sure what to make of it, and I'm reserving any ultra harsh criticism until obviously we can get our hands on one. Looks like it's going to be towards the end of the month, a couple weeks before these things actually start shipping out. But it did not feel good in this day and age of amazing budget buster phones to put in an order for $840 after taxes for a Pixel XL to do a review on a product. That already just doesn't feel great. And I know we're getting a couple things like the Qualcomm 821, so that this is Daydream compatible, and hopefully their pre-orders, there's a little bonus if you pre-order. They'll also send a certain number of Daydream View headsets out to people, so that could be a nice little tie-in with such an expensive phone. But this is Google's attempts at trying to become Apple version 2.0 and being softer around the edges, and reaching out to consumers directly and getting rid of that nerdy geeky thing that the Nexus was, because this is the Pixel and it's friendly and colorful and has silly little names for the colors that you can get for it, and it doesn't matter what's in the phone or what stuff you get, because it's a really expensive premium device, so you should want it, and that's how smartphones work. And I'm just not entirely sure that this is the right player, this is the right move, and I won't be able to finish that determination until we get closer in. But while you're looking through all the stuff there that Inabong's got on the screen, we've got the 5-inch, the 5.5-inch. Both are quad HD displays. The Pixel XL is going to come with a larger battery, thankfully, because it's got the greater surface area. And we've got the 12 megapixel camera, which apparently doesn't have any kind of optical image stabilization, but is piggybacking on what Google was doing last year with the 5X and the 6P, with advanced image processing to kind of make up the difference there. Rear-mounted fingerprint sensor, all in a very HTC-ish shell, but no other mention of other lifestyle features like wireless charging. I don't think we're going to be getting that. No water resistance, no properly rated submergible water resistance, like we just got with the iPhone 7. And those kinds of things, when we're talking about starting price $650 for the smaller 32 gig phone, which won't be able to add a memory card or expand storage, this is steep pricing for what you get. And it's a tough call in the Android ecosystem, where a number of us still do kind of care about specs. And I don't see this upsetting the Samsung Apple cart anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely. You said a lot of things I was going to say myself. Um, I'm going to switch out of this. Hopefully, you guys have seen a bunch of this, and just piggybacking on what Juan said. Starting off with the pricing. Pricing to me was very painful. I was at a Google event today, not for this, for Chrome. completely different. And a couple of people, well, we were watching it while listening to the the event we were at, and a couple of people were asking, what's the price? And I mentioned, sorry, what's the starting price again? I just forgot. $649, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, $649. And the guy looked at his Nexus, put it down, and says, "I am not switching. That is it." This is somebody I don't know. I have no idea who it is. But that was the kind of gut reaction I got from this device, and this will bode well for the 6P sales, pretty much the way I see it.
Well, but 6P is now officially off the Google Play Store, isn't it?
You know what?
Or at least if it's not officially off the store, like the last time I went to go look it up during the event, it was already showing as no longer in stock or something like that. So
I went to
already be putting a pin in the Nexus.
Wow. Yeah, there is. You are absolutely. You know what? Let me share this right now. There is no 6P available.
Yeah. I mean, this is we've been talking about this for a while. This is all part of Google's larger move to reposition and rebrand their first party phone solution. This is no longer for developers. This is a consumer facing device. I'm assuming that the Verizon model, which is going to be the only one that goes directly to carriers, is going to be a Verizon variant, is going to have a locked bootloader. It's going to be impossible to tinker or do anything with it. I'm hoping that the Project Fi, the unlocked version, will still be somewhat accessible to people who like to do that kind of stuff. I still don't. I haven't played with a custom ROM in a really long time, but we had a platform that was really good for that, and now it seems like the spiritual successor is the OnePlus 3. So, a lot of these moves, especially for the people that would be apt to watch our shows, I think we've completely walked away from what made the Nexus a compelling device initially, and now we're looking at Google trying to become more of an Apple solution for their ecosystem. The other products that came out, like the Chromecast and Google Home and Google Wi-Fi, all of those things kind of tying together in the same way that Apple would have positioned like the Airport and Apple TV. And now the Pixel being a lot more iPhone-y in its presentation and in its feature set, even down to things like, we're starting you off with a base minimum of storage, and then we're, not letting you upgrade the storage on your own, which has always been a hallmark of Nexus devices. But it's something that a number of people, I think, have kind of come to expect from Android being a bit more flexible in that regard.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just going back to the initial point of saying the price was a big thing that kind of threw me off. The camera was pleasant to hear, but then again, we all know my mind was HTC is making this as a F 2.0 stop, so we'll see how it is in real life.
It's not the aperture. The aperture doesn't concern me as much once we get to F 2.0. We'll obviously probably have some deficiencies when it comes to things like depth of field when you compare it to the f1.7 on a Galaxy S7, but I'm still not convinced. And a lot of Nexus owners like 5X and 6P people are going to come storming in to tell me how I'm wrong, and I don't see any evidence to support that assertion. But that I still haven't seen the evidence that you can truly compete with a single sensor solution for low light, nighttime photography, indoor lighting conditions, and not have optical image stabilization, actual hardware stabilization. I think that makes a bigger difference than the aperture or the pixel size. Google's solution seems very sophisticated. It's going to layer up a bunch of raw images and process out a single JPEG to try and improve noise and low light sensitivity, but that's a processing solution. That's not a camera solution. That doesn't mean the camera is better. It just means that there's a more sophisticated engine to process the photos on the back end. And I still very much disagree. Sorry, I'll wrap this up.
No. I was going to ask you a question there.
Oh yeah. What's that?
Why not just have the camera solution and the processing solution, since I'm paying God knows $649 for this thing and it has no lifestyle features? I'm not trying to hate on the device, but fine, if you're gonna make me something, I mean, wow me with the camera. Don't give me a camera where I can second guess when you announce it, because I please just try and I don't know.
Well, again, I think this goes to that point. I really do believe that this is why we're looking at such a consumer-facing strategy. The idea behind the Pixels isn't, can we deliver the best? It's how much can we really expect people to pay for something that's actually quite common. And they've got a couple things that they're really focused on. They're focused on Google Assistant. They're focused on Daydream. Those are the two things where we're seeing Google try and advance, some notion of improving the quality of using a smartphone. The camera situation is one where probably from a whole bunch of consumer testing and from focus grouping, more people probably complained about a bulge on the back of the phone than whether or not those cameras really took good photos. So if you showed them a bunch of just overprocessed HDR pics, ooh, look, they're so colorful and such great images. Oh, but this lump on the back of my phone, that's terrible. That to me really seems to be the guiding ethic on a lot of decisions made for Pixel is, well, consumers don't really care about things like wireless charging, so we just won't do it. Consumers still buy tons of phones that don't have water resistance, so we won't worry about that either. But consumers are complaining because there's a lump on the back of their phone. Well, let's get rid of that. And it makes it nearly impossible to do a properly sunk image stabilized sensor if you want it completely flush with the rear casing. And that's also why I said single sensor solutions, because you look at a phone like the P9, and the P9 doesn't have, the Huawei P9 doesn't have image stabilization, but it's really benefiting from dual sensors processing each image. And it competes very well against optically image stabilized phones. And that shouldn't be a surprise, because with two sensors, you're able to deliver a lot more light information to combining those two images for final output.
Yeah, no, definitely. The other thing too, that looking at the Pixel that is very striking is that, you know, Google has decided to, like you said earlier, it's targeting that Apple framework and an Android base, which is, to me, I find it a little funny because your market leader is Samsung.
Yep.
And your market leader at that price point throws in lifestyle as well as performance as a combined feature set. The Galaxy S7, the exploding Note 7s, and the real, you know, I'm just joking there. But the, you know, those lines of devices really combine both the lifestyle with the water resistance, the wireless charging in there, as well as also just, you know, the hardware specs that every Android fanboy loves in there. Totally. So I'm beginning to wonder, you know, what Google is trying to do, or what Alphabet is trying to do with Google, because this kind of takes me just to a little side note yesterday where I almost made a video saying, what the frack is wrong with Microsoft, with the Microsoft band being discontinued. And we're now seeing Google with a plethora of, you know, devices, hardware devices. And it seems like Alphabet is trying to now reposition part of Google as being what their manufacturing wing, you know, or not manufacturing, but their hardware division, partly hardware division that is supplemented by AI and solid Google-backed software. So, I wouldn't say it's my question, but my thought process here is pretty much that's where they're going with this. Do they think the Android fan base will follow? Now, not necessarily with the Pixel, but just with the overall idea of what Google is trying to push.
Actually, I don't think Google cares if the current fan base follows. I think Google only cares that they're seeing increased mind share amongst general consumers, that Google is the company behind your phone. And I think, you know, when we're talking about Samsung Note 7s getting such bad press, I'm happy to see that that doesn't seem to have overly affected the Android ecosystem to any great degree. The iPhone 7 launch is one of the poorest launches for Apple in terms of migrating Android users over to iOS. So even with all of this news of exploding Note 7s, we've seen less traction in people switching ecosystems this quarter of this beginning of the iPhone launch. So I think what Google is really focused on is taking back the mantle of Android. They've never really had a great solution where customers, general consumers, really knew what was going on with phone software. They went right from Verizon Droids to Samsung Galaxies.
Yeah.
And people sort of conflate the manufacturer of a device with the software on that device. And that's why Samsung does have leverage. If they wanted to go off and make a Tizen phone, as long as it had sort of a touch-whizzy feel on the front face, I don't know that so many consumers would really fully understand what kind of difference was happening in the underpinnings of the software underneath. Is just, oh, my App Store icon looks different. Oh, I still have Facebook. You know, like, I don't know that that would be an overly scary transition for Galaxy owners. So I think this is Google's attempt at getting ahead of the future of where they think AI is going to go.
Yeah.
They need a hardware platform that they can properly control, but they'd also want that to be the driving force behind consumer discussion over the new things that are coming out. And so everything that they were trying to warn people, other manufacturers, away from when they bought out Motorola is basically gonna have to come to pass now. that the Nexus is going to get stuff that other manufacturers will lag behind on. We already know that the ecosystem in Android is terrible for offering updates for software, especially on older phones. And if Google's going to start addressing that and fixing that, they have to be okay with pissing off some manufacturing partners.
That's a very interesting point, how that plays out. So in terms of, okay, what's your final assessment on this device before we just talk about a few other things? We haven't reviewed it, but from the snap judgment of the press conference, where do you see the Pixel do in terms of sales, in terms of mind share, in terms of even just pushing that general Google message that they laid out today of saying, look, this is what we are doing, and we would like to rein Android back in.
So I think there's some value in starting that conversation. I think there's some value for consumers who might not understand everything that's going on, but going, oh, this is the Google phone. And that phone should be supported like an Apple phone. Of course, consumers are going to have to contend with the fact that Google does not have the tech support or shipping support infrastructure that Apple has. So when you have issues with your Google phone, it's not like you can just drive over to a Google store and get those things serviced. So I still think there's going to be some stumbling blocks to really changing the nature of the Google direct to consumer relationship there. From the enthusiast standpoint, I think this is the wrong time for Google to be launching a premium expensive phone that doesn't seem to outpace any of the current competition to any significant or great degree. That's a tough call in this market right now, where we've got people regularly dropping comments and requesting more information on the crop of $400 phones that's out there right now, which delivers some phenomenal experiences. It was a difficult button press to put $840 on my credit card to pick up a 32 gigabyte Pixel XL. That kind of stuff matters.
Wow, I didn't even. Oh my god, yeah. I haven't done that purchase yet.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm gonna be getting my really blue, and mine wouldn't allow me to do any kind of expedited shipping. So I know people are going to be getting their Pixels ahead of me, probably by 4 or 5 days. And after I pushed go on the order, it's like I just don't know that I can care that much. I'm curious to play with it. I'm sure it's going to be a very good device, but $840 demands more than just a very good
device. Yeah,
and exactly. And so it's the same thing that we've always been talking about on both of our various podcasts. I have the theory that for a consumer to really take a product seriously, you need 3 years of active development and support in whatever ecosystem you're working in. And so they're getting rid of the Nexus name, and what little consumer mindshare the Nexus had is now gone.
Yeah.
The Pixel had none. Pixel tablets, Pixel Chromebooks, no consumer association with any of those devices. None. So you're kind of starting from scratch and building the Google brand and really communicating what benefits that might offer over a Galaxy or an LG or an HTC. And I really expect that the novelty of this conversation will spur some decent sales. But if Google can't demonstrate that they can rule the roost in the Android ecosystem, really deliver compelling devices that encourage both novices and expert users alike, then I don't think this experiment's going to be any more successful than the Nexus was.
No, I definitely agree. One of the things I actually wanted to mention then, REM Online actually asked us a question is, do you think the Pixel will get a lot of mainstream attention due to it being Google versus iPhone or Apple, with key features like 15 minutes of battery charging at a time? And then the next user makes a comment underneath and says, I can't read his name because it's not in English. 15 minutes for 7 hours is nothing compared to others, which is very true, which puts me in this very...
Well, and don't do that. Don't do that. I'm so tired of these bold claims delivered in feel good, consumery metrics. Like when the iPhone it's 400 times more powerful than the very first iPhone 2G that we released almost 10 years ago. Like, that's not a metric. That's
no,
not information. And
it's
so to
so
tell
true,
me that
yeah.
I can get 7 hours of what kind of use? Because I guarantee you it's not 7 hours of my use after 15 minutes. It's not 7 hours of driving through Southern California traffic, streaming to my radio, pulling up car metrics from my in-dash car computer module, and powering a smartwatch and keeping all of that stuff fed while I'm getting texts and notifications from the people I care about with the screen off. I'm sure that it's not 7 hours of that kind of active usage.
That's the funny thing, because the one metric I did like was when Samsung and LG introduced the ultra power saving mode, because it was very clear that all you could do was send text messages and receive phone calls, and it would last you a day. But these kind of metrics make no sense, and I don't think that conversation, to REM Online's question, will hit the mainstream media, unless, of course, we'll have to see what Google's marketing with this phone is, how big they push it come holiday season, because the pricing really puts it against the iPhone, and people saying, huh? And then against the Samsung, which is going to be their main competitor, at least on the top tier Android base. The S7 is cheaper, right? Yeah, the S7 is a cheaper device, and the Note 7.
It depends on where you get it. I mean, if you
the US,
I think the S7, the smaller sized S7, is more expensive on AT&T. But you get it on T-Mobile, it's like $30 cheaper than a Pixel.
Okay, all right, so it's comparable, and the Note 7, costs a little bit more. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out, because for me, the hype just really wasn't there, and I didn't care about specs hype. I wanted to see what else they would add into this device other than the Google Assistant to make me fully care, because the Assistant thing is nice and novel, and it's something that users will try and get into. But what other features do you have? Looking at Apple now, who is always throwing out, they're now throwing out, water resistant ads out there for the iPhone, right. iPhone plus.
Actually, the iPhone water resistance ad is baller.
Yeah, the one with the lightning.
Yeah.
That's a great magic ad. I was like, okay, all right. You up the ante, because Samsung started it way back with you drop your iPhone in water, and this. So iPhone's like, what? We're gonna bring the Thunder God out here.
And literally, like, isn't it AC/DC that they're playing in the background of that ad?
Thunder. I was like, okay, that's nice. So that's the kind of thing that gets people. I know a lot of Android fans will say, I don't need water resistance. I'm like, you will one day. No matter who you are, you will need.
But then also, it's not whether or not you need something. If you don't want to pay for water resistance, there are $400 phones that are phenomenal performers. Anymore, and I'm getting really tired of people like, oh, this phone has the Qualcomm 820, so it's not a mid-ranger, it's the premium phone. No. It doesn't matter what tech is going into the phone, because tech prices are dropping rapidly with every new development cycle. Now we need to justify why we spend more than $400 on a phone. And companies like Apple and Samsung are looking at things like lifestyle features, higher quality displays, water resistance, and improved enhancement for durability, things like that. Because I know if I'm going like rafting, I'm going to take a Samsung with me. I'm not going to take my OnePlus 3. So that's really now the tone of the discussion. And we can all celebrate that mid-rangers have gotten phenomenally good, but we need to justify why there's even still a premium tier of smartphones anymore. And that's another question where I don't know that Google has found a good answer for why their products are as premium priced as they are.
Yeah, no, definitely. You hit the nail on the head, because, on the premium level, we have a couple of devices. You have an Apple device, and Apple can justify because of the ecosystem combined with the lifestyle features and styling. And then on Android, you have Samsung and as well as LG, especially looking at the V20. The V20 gives you a whole pack of premium features, from camera to audio. I mean, that quad DAC alone is just making me sweat right here. I'm telling you, so
man with the headphone wall, you should like it. You should dig it.
So that's something that, as a user, you go, no other phone can compete, or at least at that coming at a lower price range. And same thing with Samsung. You have the Note line, which has prosumer features in the sense of, power user, using the S Pen and things like that. And then the S line itself has, of course, the lifestyle features combined. So it's really interesting to see, and we'll have to see how that combines. I wanted to quickly touch on the other announcements Google made: Google Home, Google Wi-Fi. I know you were very interested in the Chromecast, the new Chromecast Ultra, which is what it's called. So just you pick whichever one you want to start with, and then we can just run from there.
Cool.
Okay, I will.
I didn't know what you wanted to start with, though. I mean,
I will start with the Ultra.
Chromecast.
Yeah, Chromecast Ultra, 4K HDR.
Actually, the thing, because we talked about this on your podcast this last week, and one of the things why I'm always excited to see improvements to a Chromecast. So first of all, 4K streaming, I think that's going to be great. I'm looking to even try one out to see how it downsamples for 1080p TVs, because if it's still streaming a higher quality image, that could still be an improvement over the standard HD streaming Chromecast. And anyone who's going to get cranky, but you can't see all the pixels on a 1080p display, it fundamentally doesn't understand how image subsampling works. So I'm curious to see if Google is still providing a higher quality image, or if they're doing shenanigans to reduce quality of the display. Yeah. But the thing that I was really stoked about was to see that they're adding Ethernet, so that the Power Brick is going to have its own Ethernet port, so that you can better stream content to those devices. That to me makes it totally worth the idea of like stringing Ethernet cabling from one end of my living room to the other to try and support direct cabled connections for better streaming video content. No, I was really excited to see.
I definitely agree. I'm excited to see it, especially at the price point. It's much lower than what Roku's offering for their HDR combined offering. So I like to see how HDR functionality, because it also supports HDR10 and Dolby Vision. Combined. Nice. Yeah. So it'll be, and there's only one show that supports Dolby Vision on Netflix.
Well, and also again, the idea that Google is getting a little bit smarter about tying their ecosystem together. I mean, if we move on to talk about Google Home and Google Wi-Fi, the fact that Chromecast becomes another portal through which your Google Home commands can be directed, and that Google Home is looking to open up that ecosystem in a way where it learns what you use most. So if you're a Spotify user, you don't have to say, play this song. I mean, play this song on Spotify, like it's just going to sort of follow you on the services that you're already subscribed to.
Yeah.
So the idea that you can seamlessly move back and forth between a Google Home speaker or a Chromecast connected to your in-house audio equipment, I think that idea is very compelling in not only spreading out the ecosystem, but actually making the ecosystem easier to use at the same time. That I do want to give them a thumbs up for.
I definitely like it. I like what they talked about with Google Home and how that expands. I just want to see the implementation, because one thing that got me scared today, which has nothing to do with this conference, but something to do with what I heard at the other event I was at, which is still a Google event, was a quote that I heard from presenters saying, Google has a 10x philosophy. They're trying to go past that glass wall ceiling 10 times what anyone else would do as a competition. And if they feel that something isn't working, they're willing to burn it. And as soon as he said that, I started thinking of Hangouts, Duo, and all these different applications and how they create lots of things and never focus. So I know with Home, this is something they really want to push. So it was just interesting. Just that thought process hit my head, and I was like, please, make sure you stick all the way through. Another thing, though, which I even didn't realize until I saw a tweet from someone, says Google talks about Google Home and installing microphones around your house, and they didn't talk a single lick about privacy whatsoever. Which,
well, they had that, didn't they have like that one little icon in the very beginning describing
privacy,
one of the processes for voice transcription, and they had like, it was literally a blink and you'd miss it graphic of like your voice going to this lock and then going out to the final piece because someone mentioned aloe or something like that.
Yeah,
and that was literally the only discussion of consumer privacy and data security during this entire AI featured event. talking about better home integration. And to your point, just to backtrack real quick, it does make me super nervous that really their only popular home product has been Chromecast. So I'm pretty stoked at the idea of investing in another Chromecast. I'm a little warier about anything else because they haven't proven the fortitude to stick with any line of products for any significant length of time. And my experiences with Nest recently have been pretty terrible. So I don't have any confidence in even the companies that they acquire continuing to iterate and improve and release new products over time.
Yeah, surprisingly, we didn't hear a new Nest device. This is a good time to tie it in with, Google Home altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, I would
Well,
think
and
so.
again, they mentioned it in that it will be vaguely compatible with Google Home, but to what degree, we don't know.
Okay. Juan Ortiz asked the question, did Google just kill Android TV? No longer any devices in the Play Store. I think any Google made or any Google branded Android TV devices have all ended. Android TV is still supported on Sony devices because Sony is all Android TV. So it's just through Sony, NVIDIA, and third-party manufacturers who want to have that platform on there. So I think that's where
I think the writing's been on the wall for a while that Android TV, I mean, same thing with like Nexus Player. Those products were sort of officially were evolutionary dead ends for the company. And again, they didn't make an insta splash, so Google got bored with them after about 2 iterations and then effed off to go do something else. And so far, the only thing that's stuck was the original, what was it, $30 HDMI USB stick of a Chromecast, which just had the novelty of being cheap, and that's why they've stuck with sort of iterating and developing for that platform.
How about Daydream?
So that was actually another pleasant surprise. I very much agree with, again, I mean, a lot of this is just sort of marketing feel good stuff, and we'll have to see once we get our hands on one how this thing really performs. But I agree with a lot of the sentiments that a number of the VR solutions that I've played with are uncomfortable to wear. They're a pain to set up. Some of them still have like ridiculous phone insertion processes, which make it nearly impossible to really get the phone started in a VR mode and then put the thing on your head before that experience gets interrupted. So right off the bat, knowing that I'm going to be getting the Pixel XL, I'm pretty confident that the image quality is going to be mediocre. We're putting magnification on a quad HD screen, so we know that that's going to look grainy and pen tile-y, just like it looks like on a Samsung phone.
Yeah.
But I am confident that this will be a good platform to start improving the experience moving from here. And I love that their attention has been on the sort of experience and lifestyle surrounding VR. It's fabric based, that it's a really easy latch system, that the remote fits in the case when you're done, the headset when you're done using it. Those little things I thought were really nice touches, especially for someone. I've spent a lot of money on other third-party cardboard viewers. Like I've got a Merge VR, which I think is still one of the best wearable VR headsets for in interacting with cardboard apps, but it's really expensive. And to see them come at a price point lower than the Merge VR was pretty, that was actually kind of exciting. I am really curious to see how they expand on that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I liked the design. I like the look. I like just the lifestyle implementation of this. And someone was asking, what will Samsung do? Of course, this always pushes Samsung to either imitate or make it better in their own way. So it's good. It's good for the market, and also it's good for driving that price point down. I want to see these kind of levels of portable VR headsets drop to $50. That's such a sweet price point where then 79 still is one of those places you're like, I can pick it up, but 50 is always great. And it's better.
Say, like 79 is one of those, it's not quite the impulse buy as a phone accessory, but it's close. So if you already have some notion that you would like to play with it, or that you've already been playing with other cardboard viewers, it's a much easier recommend than I think if they had even gone up to $20 to that $99 price point. I think we'd all be kind of shaking our heads, maybe walking away.
Yeah, most people will go. Does it have a gyroscope built in or no?
I don't know. That I don't know. I didn't officially get the white paper specs on Daydream. I don't know if for a phone to be Daydream compatible, all of that hardware is on the phone, or if it's interacting with anything on the headset. Seeing as how there's no hard cabled connection, I don't think that they can have anything too robust in the headset.
That's it. Yeah.
Everything is sort of paired up wirelessly. So I think that might be one of the requirements for a Daydream compatible phone is a certain set of chipset hardware sensors and
things like that.
Yeah, to make sure that it works properly. But this is also why I'm like, even more hopeful that we'll see next year a Samsung Galaxy S8 with a 4K display. I instantly want to throw that into something like a Daydream View. And see if that can start getting mobile phone VR experiences a little closer to how good the experience is on something like an HTC Vive.
Right now you have to get on a waiting list for the Daydream, for the Google Home, as well as also the...
Well, if you ordered a Pixel today, and if you were thinking about throwing in your pre-order, Thundery, they are running a very limited promotion where people can get a coupon code for a Daydream View. When it's released. So I of course it's all full of the while supplies last. So those supplies better effing last while, so I can get mine, son. But it's one of those things to think about if you were looking at maybe trying to throw some cash at a Pixel today.
REM Online says the remote has it, aka the gyroscope. So, but still,
well, the remote has a gyroscope, but that's not to affect the head orientation and perspective of the VR. That's to interact with objects and media
in virtual space
in the VR. But yeah, so I mean that remote actually is one of the things that's kind of exciting at this price point. Is that's a really sophisticated solution for better interacting with media. The cardboard solution is kind of terrible, especially if you want to back out of an app. I've got this Merge VR. It's on my face. It's super comfortable to wear. And then the second I want to do something in cardboard, I've got to tilt the entire viewer to back out. That's the back gesture, which means I can't keep it strapped to my head. That's kind of clown shoes. So a remote makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's true. And finally, just quickly before we even round up, thoughts on Google Wi-Fi and this system they set up, because you can get it for $129, just a single Google Wi-Fi hub, and then you can get a package for $299 for a bigger home, so that you have seamless wireless connectivity around your home altogether.
Again, like the airport base stations from Apple, I'm really curious to know what protocol they're using for connecting multiple wireless signals, because we've actually seen a couple really expensive consumer-facing solutions which start to mimic more the business-grade solutions, where it's not just a repeater, because a repeater is crap. That's going to cut your bandwidth in half. But some of these newer mesh networks are mesh solutions, and I don't even know that they're properly meshed. Someone's going to call me out on that and correct me there. But some of these new sort of hybrid systems do a much better job of fulfilling your actual data connection, your actual bandwidth, even at the farther points of your wireless reach. So I'm curious to know what Google is doing in their implementation here, if it's more of a bridge or of a repeater style solution, or if we'll get something a little bit smarter than that so that our wireless speeds aren't tanked by the time we get to a farther base station.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I am definitely interested too. I would really love to. This is actually the one I want to try out the most out of all of them, just because I want to get the $299 version, go back to my uncle's place in Massachusetts. Even if I could go back to my old apartment too, which was horrid. I had to run a 100-foot cable. Initially, I had to run a 200-foot cable because for some reason the router was in the basement. So I had to run a cable from the basement through the chimney.
Bad, but our condo is really long. I mean, all of the rooms are sort of like lined up in a row, as opposed to like being sort of spread out in more of a squarish layout. And the cable connection to the modem is at the farthest corner from the opposite end of where we keep the TV and game console and Chromecast. So I kind of had to do the same thing. There are 3 walls that I've drilled holes through just to feed Ethernet through. It's so cheese dick. It's like literally just a gaping hole in my office behind a closet, in the back wall of a closet, and that goes out into a pantry that then gets snaked around, and then I've got an extra Wi-Fi router, which I've got just set up as a sort of a slave device to the main router in my office. And it's such a crap solution. I don't know.
Oh, man,
if there were a way to fulfill that all with wireless stations, that would absolutely be preferable.
Yeah, definitely. So that's pretty much it. in terms of what Google had to offer. I know you guys had a lot of comments in there. Just checking through to see if we can answer a few questions, probably like 3 or 4 questions. And then we'll definitely round this up. Somebody asked me my camera. It's already there on screen. How far is the Wi-Fi range? Don't know because we don't have specs yet.
Oh, and the person you couldn't figure out his name, it's fancy script for Shady. That
Really?
guy's name
Oh.
is Shady.
Oh, really? How did you get his name?
Oh, he actually just wrote it. I'm not.
Oh. I was like,
He replied to you in another comment, but he asks, do you guys think it would be worth the camera? Oh, he's talking about the Pixel. Do you think the Pixel camera would be worth it over a dual camera phone such as the P9? And someone else asked if we really thought the Pixel would have the best camera ever.
Okay.
Radovan, do you guys really think the camera on the Pixel is the best in the market? So first of all, if you don't mind me just jumping in.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
That DxO score is very compelling, but DxO heavily weights sensor performance, and a camera is not just a sensor. So if you go from 89 to 88, and again, it's really hard to judge what is a 1-point difference between the Pixel and the trio of phones that they have ranked at 88 versus the Pixel's 89 score. Those phones are the HTC 10, which I think has a very good camera, the Galaxy S7 Edge, which has an excellent camera, and the Sony Xperia X Performance, which has an amazing camera sensor and quite possibly one of the most infuriating camera apps I've ever used. And that the optics actually aren't super terrific, if I remember correctly from our X Performance review, that they were good, but I don't think they unseated even Apple in terms of things like fringing and flaring and barrel distortion for photos, especially when you're in high contrast situations.
Okay.
So when I'm looking at the P9, my hypothesis is that the P9 is going to handily beat the Pixel in most still photo shooting situations, and then it's going to have its ass handed to it for video. That the P9 video is mid-pack at best. It's only 1080p, and the software crop only works for 30 frame per second 1080p. Now, as for whether or not I think this is going to be the Pixel is going to be the best camera on the market, I will not rate a camera as being the best if it ignores people of different skill sets. So Google's whole ethic, the Nexus camera app, is entirely built on, I'll pull the phone out of my pocket and I'll push a shutter button and look at all the pretty colors. And that's it. If all you're telling me about are auto modes and HDR plus modes and fun panorama and slow motion modes, and you have no system for expanding on controls or on even just basic exposure and metering options.
Wait. There's no pro mode?
Is there a pro? I'm looking on my Nexus 5X with Nougat, and I can't find any additional modes for expanded control.
Mine is out of power right now.
So I say I've got HDR plus. I'm looking. I've got photosphere. I've got panorama, lens blur, slow motion, and settings. And then I go into settings, and I can view my grid in the viewfinder. I've got the volume key action. I can control the resolution. I can change the panorama resolution, and I can change the video resolution. When I tap to focus. And someone please correct me if I'm doing something wrong here, but when I tap to focus, I can't find even options to do a basic exposure compensation. So I'm tapping on a dark keyboard with the auto HDR mode right now, and it's completely blowing out the shot because it's full auto. I can't tell it, no, don't expose for this black surface. That's too dark. Split the difference. So I'm not sure what it is that we're really in store for with Pixel. I'm hoping that they expand on some of those options. But if all you're doing is catering to this notion of the lowest common consumer denominator, you cannot have the best camera. Yeah. I find that to be woefully insulting to the number of people that can get great content out of other competing devices, and there's nothing in the Samsung or LG camera apps which is going to upset novices. In fact, the LG simple mode is probably the best way to shoot. You tap the screen, it takes a photo. It really doesn't get easier than that. So already this notion of the Google camera app has failed if they're really trying to say, well, this is the easiest way for someone to take a good photo. And then you can go and expand to a really well-featured auto mode or go all the way into exacting full manual controls for every single situation and option that you would ever need to adjust on your phone camera. That to me, even though I'm sure that in one-to-one, like, oh well, there's a little bit more grain in the LG photo here, it means the LG camera system, as a whole, the hardware and the software, is going to do a better job of providing me exactly what I need in any given moment to make sure I capture the memory as I want to capture it. So that to me marks the difference between a good camera and a truly great camera.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the other part too is going back to OIS.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what video recording is going to look like or feel without that, especially just in motion. And I know some people will argue and say, well, who walks and takes a video? I'm like, okay, maybe you don't live in the real world, but that's what's going to happen. So again, that's also half of the camera. It's not just taking photos and taking photos with HDR plus always on. It's about giving your customers the ability to use it the best way they can, be it auto or be with OIS, be with functionality. For crying out loud, blue phones have a pro mode. Okay, blue
Alcatel,
phones have a pro
you get it.
mode.
You pick up an Alcatel Idol 3. Was it the Idol 3? They started incorporating full manual controls on the Idol 3, and that was a $150 phone at launch. You can't tell me that this is some hallmark of a premium device that we're withholding settings and controls and features from people who could actually benefit from them. So if you ignore people, experienced photographers and professionals, and all you're doing is catering to the bottom barrel, then no, I can't say it's the best. It's not the best.
And true. Also, again, we haven't tested it. So again, those are the DX Mark score is also a controlled environment, you know.
Well, and also I read through, while we were prepping for this, I read through their entire review, and I can't get a handle on whether or not they were shooting under normal or under the HDR mode. They reference the HDR mode, but I'm not sure if the final images that they're examining were the process of multiple exposure HDR composites, which again, that's more the phone's ability to edit a photo than capture a photo, or if they were shooting under those controlled situations using the normal camera mode, which doesn't produce as much of this sort of software manipulation for all of your images. And so even just not knowing what their test process was, I'm still very apt to agree with their sensor scores, but I'm not going to let that motivate what I think of the camera as a whole. That to me raises some very serious, not serious, but some questions as to what it is that this thing can really achieve when you're sort of trying to push it to its limits. Because the second you get a better camera, people start trying to use them in more and more aggressive situations and conditions.
Yeah. And we're not saying the camera is terrible, guys. No one's saying that. We're just saying that assertion and claim that it's the best from a 1-point score above the rest.
During a press conference, they literally said, this isn't the best camera we've produced. This is the best camera anyone has produced.
Exactly.
And that is a claim that when testing, I think is going to be very difficult for this phone to live up to that assertion.
Yeah, exactly. So it's what they said, not us, that we have to basically check out. Because, you know, and to me, again, too, it's one of those things where if I was looking at just scores and numbers, if you said an 89 was better than 88 and and you claimed it was groundbreaking, I would laugh because it's 1 point. This is not a 2 or 3 point scale or even a 5 point where I go, you know what? Whoo, this is the Jesus camera. This is the one that you see the Holy Spirit.
And, you know, again, like we're 2 points away from phones like the Galaxy S6 Edge. You know, that's an 87.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So the Pixel is 2% better than the Galaxy S6 Edge. That's not any revolution in smartphone photography. Yeah. It's 1% better than the sensor on the Galaxy S7 Edge, and it's coming almost, 8 months after the launch of the Galaxy S7. So if we were just looking at Samsung, wouldn't we criticize Samsung if the camera was only 1% better from generation to generation? I think that would be fair to say, like, Samsung is just recycling stuff. You know, we saw some of those complaints, like, was the S7 camera really better than the Note 5 camera? You know, and that was a shorter period of time in between those two launches.
Yeah.
So I don't have, again, I don't have a lot of faith in feel-good marketing metrics that we're gonna boast about during a press conference. And I'm sure this is going to be a good camera. And the Nexus 6P is a good to very good camera, depending on what you want out of a camera. But it doesn't deserve to be in that top tier if it doesn't fully support everything that we've come to expect from a premium smartphone experience at that high end, be it dual image sensors, be it optical image stabilization. The dual pixel technology in the Galaxy S7 is freaking unbelievable when it comes to focus speed and acquisition.
I was about to say we end this, but did I must have missed this. There is no headphone jack
on the Pixel. Is
there, or is it on the top?
They mentioned one. I think it's on the top.
Oh, sorry.
Go back to like the full spec sheet, because I think there is a mention that there is a 3.5 millimeter jack.
Okay.
I thought I caught.
All right, let's see.
Or at least I thought I caught a photo of that. I'll see if I can pull up my. Keynote sheet.
I was beginning to freak out. I was about to just call the photo trash.
Yes. So they specifically mention in the event. If you go back to the keynote, they have one slide up on the Pixel hardware specs,
yeah.
And they do specifically mention a 3.5 millimeter head.
All right. Sorry, my bad. I apologize, people. I freaked out. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and if that had been the case, I think I'd be savaging this phone even a little bit harder.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining, and Thank you everyone for putting comments there. There are a lot of comments. Please leave more comments in the in the comment section of this video.
Man, so you're still recovering from that too. I can hear that, like the pulse is still raised. You're breaking out in a flop sweat.
I was like, there's no headphone jack.
Oh God. Oh my God.
You know what? I really want to do a hangout on that, because there was the whole release of the new USB-C specs on audio. And I mean, if you have time this week, if we can just
we should nail that down. That's definitely something we should talk about
and talk about audio. So if you guys are interested in that, we'll do that also. But hopefully you enjoyed this hangout on the Google Pixel and also the other Google announcements at the show. Any more questions or comments, leave them in the comment section of this video. Definitely will come back and answer, and also just share some thoughts with you. Also, if you are a Star Trek fan, definitely check out Mr. Juan Bagnell's video. I'm going to link it up also I'm still watching it, by the way, bro. So I kind of just paused it. It's on my browser there. But this is
my drunken rant on a combination of tacky beer and cold medication.
Complaining about the anniversary. Talking about Star Trek 50th anniversary and the fact that there's really nothing going on, to celebrate 50 years of Star Trek. Yeah, definitely is. But definitely check out Mr. Juan Bagnell on Pocket Now, although his camera's kind of died off, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. At least like the camera died and not my audio.
Yes. So you can check his videos out on Pocket Now. Also, you can check out videos of him, some other stuff like the Star Trek stuff on Some Gadget Guy. I have the links for you guys in the description once this video is done. Follow him on Twitter. It is Some Gadget Guy on Twitter. And also, you can check us out at Bored at Work. It's Bored at Work on Twitter, as well as also on YouTube. So this is Thunder E saying thank you very much, and always enjoying your entertainment.
Bam.